rights issues. Congressman Cohen is the only member of the Tennessee congressional delegation with a 100% scorecard on the Planned Parenthood legislative scorecard. In fact, he's received a 100% rating every year since he's been elected to Congress in 2006, making him one of Planned Parenthood's true advocates in the House. When we need a House member to co-sponsor legislation on federal funding for Planned Parenthood, on global women's health programs, or on comprehensive sexual health education, we can count on Steve. He even spoke out on the House floor in 2011 against the Pence Amendment, which would have stripped Planned Parenthood of all federal funding that our patients rely on for the preventive health care they need. And just this month, in response to the Hobby Lobby ruling, Congressman Cohen co-sponsored the Protect Women's Health from Corporate Interference Act, which would give women with insurance coverage for the full range of birth control options, regardless of the religious views of their employers. And his support for Planned Parenthood and women's rights predates his time, of course, in the House and back to his days in the Senate. He was a champion in the Tennessee Senate for Planned Parenthood and women's health. He stood up against anti-abortion legislation, anti-women legislation, and he always had the courage when he was in the Tennessee Senate to stand for his convictions regardless of the virulence of the opposition. And his support is not limited to women's reproductive health. Of course, he protects women who are disproportionately vulnerable to economic problems through his support for Medicaid and Medicare and food stamps and the Affordable Care Act. Violence also disproportionately harms women, and Steve co-sponsored the Democratic effort to reauthorize and strengthen the Violence Against Women Act, and just a few weeks ago he successfully passed a budget amendment to provide funding to eliminate the backlog of untested rape kits, including the shameful backlog of 12,000 untested rape kits in Memphis, the biggest backlog in the nation. We in the 9th District are lucky to have Congressman Steve Cohen, a fearless champion for women, their health, their children, and their families. It's my great pleasure to announce the endorsement on behalf of the Planned Parenthood Action Fund and the federal PAC. There is no other member of Congress who deserves this endorsement more than Steve Cohen.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gail Tyree, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak to you this morning on behalf of Planned Parenthood Advocates Mid-South. I want to speak to you this morning about Amendment 1. This amendment is one of the measures that will be on the November 4th, 2014 ballot. If passed, Amendment 1 will give politicians in the state legislature unlimited constitutional authority to restrict or even ban abortions in Tennessee under any circumstances. Amendment 1 is a flawed and dangerous amendment that would give legislators the power to interfere in private health care decisions that should be left to women, their families, their faith, in consultation with their doctors. This is a deceptively worded amendment that would change the Tennessee State Constitution to take away constitutional rights to privacy as it pertains to abortions. This amendment reads, "Nothing in this Constitution secures or protects a right to abortion or requires the funding of an abortion. The people retain the right through their elected state representatives and state senators to enact, amend, or repeal statutes regarding abortion, including but not limited to circumstances of pregnancy resulting from rape, incest, or even to save the life of the mother." Planned Parenthood advocates of Mid-South understand women and their doctors, not politicians, know what's best for women. The amendment contains no exception for cases of rape, incest, or to protect a woman's health, even when necessary to save her life. Decisions about pregnancy are personal and private, and best left to a woman to make with her family, her faith leader, and the advice of her doctor. Politicians should not interfere. Tennessee has some of the strongest privacy rights in the nation, But Amendment 1 will weaken those rights and give unprecedented power to the Tennessee General Assembly. And that is why we are educating the public about the dangers of this amendment. I thank you so much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Planned Parenthood Advocates Mid-South.
Could you spell your first and last name, ma'am?
Yes, my first name is Gail, G-A-I-L, last name Tyree, T-Y-R-E-E.
And your job title?
And
Channel 13 newscaster, reporter.
and I'm an advocate for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Mid-South. Thank you.
She did she was the faux reporter earlier. We did. Thank you, Gail, and thank you, Ashley. And now I'd like to recognize Rebecca Terrell before I recognize my two former colleagues from the state legislature.
Hi, thank you. My name is Rebecca Terrell, and I'm the Director of Choices Reproductive Health and currently the Chair of Healthy and Free Tennessee. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about how much we appreciate and depend on Congressman Cohen's representation of women's health and related issues at the federal level. I have been to Washington a number of times to speak to my elected officials on behalf of women's health issues. Nationally and internationally, Congressman Cohen always takes the meetings. He does not defer these kinds of issues to his staff. He is very interested, he is very invested and very committed, and we are very proud to support him. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Deborah Clubb and Joan, do you want to say something also? With Deborah Clubb, please.
Deborah.
Thank you, Congressman. Deborah Clubb with the Memphis Area Women's Council. We just wanted to participate in this today because we don't have a better friend in Congress than Steve Cohen. We don't have a better friend really in federal leadership, I would say, from our area. He always is listening, he's always tuned in, and he has been his whole political career. Most recently, of course, as was recently here referenced, the rape kit backlog in our city, which is a travesty and a huge, huge problem that many of us are really working very hard on. Steve stepped in here recently when Congress had the opportunity to move some monies around and do a little bit more to provide for local jurisdictions that are struggling with this problem. He got that amount that is moving through Congress, we hope to be funded at $41 million. It's going to take millions of dollars before local jurisdictions that ignored this violence against women and did not properly manage it and put it through the labs and through the prosecution system. It's going to take millions of dollars to get that all done, and we very much appreciate that. We can count on Steve Cohen to be there paying attention and listening and picking up on these things when we need it done. So we're just here today to say all of that and to thank him for all of his service. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And now I'd like to recognize two ladies who served in the House when I was in the Senate, Kathryn Bowers, who also served in the Senate with me, and Beverly Marrero, who didn't follow me because it was a lagniappe period of Sean Shea Flynn, but she followed me on a permanent basis. Senator Marrero and Senator Bowers.
I just want to say I've known Steve since he was a young Democrat just coming up in the Democratic Party, and he has always been such an advocate for women's rights. He and I have had many discussions over the years, and he understands the issues that we have to deal with. He has lots of compassion and sympathy for women who have been violated in some way or through rape or incest. He has he's a very compassionate person, but he has many interests in the rights of women, cares about domestic violence and how to prevent that in our community. I just want to say that there's no way we could ever, the women of the 9th District could never have better representation than my good friend, Congressman Cohen.
Kathryn, you want to say something, please?
Yes, I got a few words that I want to say. First of all, Steve, I want to say to you that I don't call you, you are my congressman. You know, whenever I talk to him, I say, Steve, you know, you are my congressman. But let me say this. He is an advocate for women and for all people, and especially those who are downtrodden. As a matter of fact, I'm continuing to tell people that, you know, I'd rather fight than switch. And folks say, you mean you want to fight? Don't you realize that you're vertically challenged? I said, well, yes, I do, but I have an advantage in being vertically challenged. especially as it relates to Steve, if I gotta fight for him. But I tell you this, being vertically challenged make me closer to your ankles. Once I get your ankles, you're gonna be down where I can take care of your nose. So I'll say to you, Steve, that you have been the best congressman that we have had for our congressional district, and I want you to continue to be fighting for women and for all people who are downtrodden. I know that you're gonna be successful.
Thank you, Kathryn. Thank you. I want to thank everybody here for their kind words. It's an honor to represent the 9th District. It was an honor to represent the 30th Senatorial District. Women's rights, the right to choice, is part of my DNA. Always has been, always will be. Will always be there. And I understand the issues that women face with pay, job training, child care, SNAP payments, and other important issues. I'm really humbled by these folks because they've been friends for a long time. I appreciate their kind words. I'll always be there with them. I appreciate them being here with me. And I'm going to be working in November to defeat that amendment. I voted against it many times in the Senate when I was there. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Thank you very much.